This is Dave McCain with the Right Tree Genealogy, and I'm doing a second video on ethnicity inheritance, and this one's comparing siblings. Are they actually different? First sibling, ethnicity inheritance. This is a chart that you'll see, and again I'll attach the video I've already done at the end of this one, so you can go watch that as well. It's got more detail about the me compared to my mother and my father, which sibling one, I'll go ahead and say this is actually my father here. 3 siblings that I have been able to test in my family, and his detailed information of his Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, what he is made up of each one of his parents. And then sibling number 2, same type of thing. You got parent 1 and parent 2, and then the details. And then sibling 3, same thing. And again, here's this person has 7 regions here. Now the details are the most important part of this video. So sibling 1, sibling 2, and sibling 3. This is going to be a comparison side by side of what they inherited from each one of their parents. And there's 2 key factors I want to point out here. One, I'm going to name each parent based on my research. I know which one this parent 1 is and parent 2 is for each one of these siblings. So I'm going to post that on the next few slides going forward. And then also I thought I'd go ahead, and since there's 7 regions to discuss, I'm going to kind of point out those regions. So you have Norway, which is next to Denmark and Sweden, and there's times when an ethnicity estimate, and in this case an ethnicity inheritance, could possibly be from either one of these 2 countries and read because they have a lot of heritage within this area. And then you have Scotland here in this green section here, that you could come from this area. You have Ireland, you have Wales, you have the United Kingdom, England, and Northwestern Europe here, and then Germanic, and that's again, when you look at this page, this represents all of these regions and what's across all of these 3 siblings. So now on this one I have defined the mother and the father, and then it's father, mother, as how it turns out. So you're not always going to have parent 1 is the father and parent 2 is the mother. It's just how it works out. And I'm confident in my determination here of the parentage based on my research of 40 years. So I've defined it this way. Now I'm going to compare the similarities first, and just a few select ones I'm going to point out. Number 1 is this right here. You have each one of them have 30 to 36% Scots Irish. The similarity is they're about 30 to 36%. So that's a similarity here. We'll talk more about the differences here in a few moments. And then here is a comparison of Ireland. 0% from this parent, the father here. 0% from the father, and 0% from the father. And that is very important to note here, is all 3 of the children received nothing from their father when it comes to Ireland. And that's actually a significant fact for me based on my surnames, that I know the mother, and she's even defined herself that she knew she was from Ireland area, and the McCain, which is my last name, is considered to be from the Highlands of Scotland and Northern Ireland before they came to the United States. So that's not a surprise that there's a large Scottish content in them. Ireland again being specifically on the 1 branch. Now I'm going to go ahead and go straight into this similarities. So you've seen the similarities I pointed out. Well, let's look at a few of the differences. And the first thing I'm going to point out is this particular sibling has Norway and Germanic Europe. And I've already shown that map a few moments ago of how Norway is associated potentially with Sweden and Denmark. Well, here's the fact that this sibling is showing up Norway and Germanic Europe. Now, a lot of people consider 2% as a trace result, but based on my research, I'm showing signs that one particular ancestor is from Germany. It's several generations back, right in line with getting about 2%. So the differences coming in here is finishing this. Only this sibling shows Norway and Germanic Europe. This one does not, and this one does not. And again, getting into that map I showed earlier, all of them are showing Sweden and Denmark, but this one shows Norway, which means it appears to be more significant. The DNA, when it was recombined, would show the Norwegian side instead of the Swedish and the Denmark. But again, those countries are very close, as I showed in that earlier slide. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one and go across here. Looking at what I just pulled up here, almost all of my fathers, even though he had that, we compared it as a similarity, 30%, 35%, 36%. In actuality, my father received almost all of his from his father, which means that when you're looking at matches, and I'll note this in the future here, when you look at the matches, his matches are primarily from his father's side, where the Scotland for these two siblings can be from either side. So I'm going to go ahead and populate this. When you look at this, significant inheritance from both sides. So England and Northwestern Europe, 27% from this parent, 16% from this parent. And then you take a look at the two siblings. 5% from the mother here for my father, and his other sibling here, only 3% from the mothers. But yet, in this case, the mother provided 16%. So that is a significant reason why when my father shows 25%, this sibling shows 20%. This sibling shows 43% from England and Northwestern Europe. And that's because of the amount of DNA during recombination that they inherited, or this particular sibling inherited from both parents, where the other siblings only had a small piece that was inherited. This one had more of a balanced inheritance and increased the total amount that they were England and Northwestern Europe. And then only this sibling shows from the father's side. And this is important. I wanted to bring this one up because you could have noted a couple slides back of a similarity, but actually it's not a similarity. Sweden and Denmark is 0% from the father for my father. His two siblings, this one says 2% from the father, and this is 0%, and this sibling says 0% from the father. This particular sibling did not receive any from the mother, and it is from the father. So the father also has the Norwegian, Sweden, Denmark. It says Sweden and Denmark, but only this sibling shows it from the father, and that's why this was not part of the similarities. Even though they're 0, 0, 0, they're not the same zeros. And we're going into the conclusions. This wasn't that long of a video. Just wanted to kind of explain. I had already done the first one, and I'll attach it, as I said earlier, at the end of this video. The video about ethnicity estimates comparing me to my two parents. And but this, I wanted to do three siblings, and since I have the DNA for three siblings, to show you that, you know, as I expected, actually, reviewing the ethnicity inheritance, there are going to be similarities between the siblings because they are 100% siblings, and then there's going to be differences from each parents because there's a 50% each one of them received, and they got different DNA. And two key points from this is this does help explain why there are different matches for each sibling, even when you have the same regions. You have Scotland, or you have Ireland, or you have Wales. Well, it looks like they all got their DNA from Ireland from their mother based on the slides we've been looking at. But Scotland, on the other hand, most likely that the Scotland matches my father would have would be more apt from the father's line, where the Scotland matches for the other ones could be either side. So that's an important statement. And then unless you can test your parents, this kind of is just another forward to the fact that testing your siblings can give you a better possibility for additional matches, and it will give you a better understanding of what your parents' ethnicity inheritance is from their parents. You're trying to compare and see this data. So by having multiple siblings, if you have siblings that you know of, and if you even have siblings, that helps refine a line when you see what you inherited comparison. So it's a good idea. It's just a couple of benefits of doing this, besides just comparing that there are differences and similarities. I also want to make a note here that I will still recommend ethnicity inheritance just like I would ethnicity estimates as a reference, not as a total fact. So I'm going to just back up to this slide here, and say just because it shows a percentage here of 30%, 28%, etc., does not mean that that's really your number. There can be a range there. So only by doing actual genealogy will you be able to say, yeah, their grandparent was straight from Scotland, let's say. Well, that's expecting about 25%. Your great grandparent, on the other hand, should be about 12.5% of from Scotland. So if you're receiving a larger number than that, that means you have the Scottish line in multiple branches of the same line, and that's important to know. When you look at the percentages, if you look at 3 siblings and see that the percentage are staying pretty solid between 3 siblings, you can feel more comfortable with that being a great grandparent or a grandparent, great grandparent, or a great if they're showing similarities. You're going to be 50% of each parent, but what 50% is all depends on how your DNA recombined. Thanks for watching this video. Please consider subscribing right here. Click the bell notification so you'll know when I put out future videos. Share it and like it. Consider watching the videos up top here. Let's continue learning together.